I'm Kevin Cohen at @DuBois_22.
I'm Jeff Bell at For Whom J Bell Tolls.
And I am Christian Williams at C Williams NFL, and this is the Devy Royale's YouTube.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And on this edition of the channel, we've just been looking at wide receivers. And we've been taking a look at the first two guys, and we looked at Garrett Wilson, Treylon Burks. And today we're going to be talking about Christian's love child, Drake London. He is all about this guy, his wide receiver one. Young kid at USC, absolutely. I don't know if you guys know this. You play basketball. I don't know if you heard. I've been hearing that narrative a lot now. But obviously, he's been going up the draft boards, and he's someone that I think is intriguing, especially after just broken his ankle a few months ago. Months ago, when he looked pretty good at the season. So Christian, why don't you tell us about Drake London? What do you think about him? We're obviously going to go through fantasy impact and all that stuff, but just initial thoughts and why he's your wide receiver one.
Yeah, so Drake London being my wide receiver one is something that didn't really shock me when I got to the end of my process, simply because I tend to gravitate towards these bigger guys. And, the last one we just talked about, Treylon Burks, we talked about how the NFL is gravitating towards guys that separate early and often and quicker guys. Drake London isn't technically that, but there are a lot of narratives out there that he can't separate, and that's just simply not correct. Drake London is a fantastic route runner. He's got a fantastic release package. He won from the slot his first 2 years while working on the outside a little bit, and then he kind of developed into this incredible outside receiver this last year. And we hear that he's a contested catch type of guy. And then you kind of watch the film and you realize that he was open. It was just Keaton Slovis is terrible at football and made all of those targets into contested catch situations. So Drake London's a guy that I think does everything really, really well. Obviously, you see here 4-star recruit, really productive, has a really nice breakout age for those spreadsheet people out there. And, this is kind of another case of the film matches the analytics. And when those two things are married, you typically wind up with a pretty good player. Jeff, what do you think of Drake London?
We talk about the ability to win quickly, and I do think that might be a tool that London has in his bag, and he's also able to work after the catch. I think he was like 5th in the nation in yak per game. Some of it's certainly the volume that he saw. One of those stats that the more you touch the ball, the more you're going to accumulate those things. But at the same time, you mentioned that he worked in the slot, and that's something that carries over. But reality of it is we're really looking for a wide receiver that can potentially work in the slot, or you're looking for a wide receiver that can win vertically down the field, or you're looking for a big-bodied wide receiver that can win in the red zone. And London is all of those things. And so he's got the entire package that you're really looking for. The flexibility to be able to line him up inside or outside. And we mentioned it. We talked about it a little bit in the Treylon Burks episode. His quarterback situation was bad. You can find all the tapes where he's got guys beat and he gets a lollipop ball. He basically has to wait on it. Then the defensive back gets on him. And if you're just the type that you're just looking at separation, that looks like he didn't separate on that play. He was wide open. But I do think that there's also the conflicting narrative too that you mentioned again, him being a contested catch guy. And I think that in our mind's eye, when we see 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver, we kind of go to what we've thought of those guys traditionally in football as a guy that, he's going to be lined up on the outside. Quarterback's going to throw the ball up to him, see if he can go get it essentially. And that doesn't really happen in the NFL all that much anymore. Offenses have kind of schemed away from that. You're really kind of looking for guys that are able to, like you said, separate quickly, which he can do. And that's where I think a lot of the excitement lands with Drake London, his ability to win in all those different areas. What do you think, Kevin?
Anybody that made Keaton Slovis look good, I'm on board, right? So, if Slovis, when you watch him throw to him, I mean, there's a lot of that. Can we stop throwing that highlight where London just destroys his, corner, creates that separation, and Slovis just underthrows the shit out of him, and then he goes up and catches it. Like, let's look for new highlights out there, Twitter. But I will say, like, I don't know. I think the 40 is an issue. I don't know if it's a big issue, but he didn't run it, and I think there's a reason why he didn't run it. I don't think he's healthy enough to run it. I do think that there's some question marks about that ankle, which is, that's understandable. I think he's fine. I think in terms of what we did, I think we all thought he was going to be above 4.5. I thought maybe the 4.55 or somewhere in that area. Yeah. Like, I think Christian said 4.6. Like when we talked about it, like, I do think that that's just who he is. That's okay. I do think he does things well. I think he does good against cover 2. I think he can find open zone. He manufactures space with tight angles. I think in his cuts, like, he can do those type of things that you'd like to see from him. And I do like that he played in the slot too. Like, he does these things well, these contested catches well. He's played on the outside. I don't know how much he's going to be able to play on the outside, but if teams, again, it comes down to that thing. If a team drafts him, they have to have a plan for him. Like, they better be able to use him around and utilize him in the right ways, just like Burks, just like Wilson. But I think London, to a degree, needs to be a little bit more scheme for it. Like, hey, this is how we're going to use this guy in our offense. I hope he goes to a quarterback that can kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say exemplify his strengths, but at least push those out of there, because I played with Slovis and he still produced. If he can go to a real team, I haven't seen a ceiling yet with a real quarterback throwing the football. So that is, I think, where you rank him higher. I think if you look at it this case, I think he has a very, very high ceiling. And if he can reach that, then we could be talking about him as being the wide receiver one of this class. And everybody's like, why didn't he get drafted first? Or shit, he might get drafted first, to be honest, just based on the boards and the mocks that I've seen. I don't know. What do you think about the Jets? As we're watching this film here, Christian, do you like that Jets spot? Because I've seen him mocked there a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Jets fit is kind of going to be interesting for all these different guys because, I've been mocking Jameson there. I think he fits. I think what they need to do is go get a guy that can win downfield so that they can use Elijah Moore in the role that he should be used in, which is as a slot possession receiver. Not to say that Elijah can't win downfield, but he's a slot guy and he can be a really, really good slot guy for you. So Drake London would provide that. And I think Zach Wilson is kind of, I expect Zach Wilson to not be as awful. I think we saw flashes down the stretch of him progressing as a quarterback. So, yeah, I mean, I don't mind that. I think, again, that quarterback situation, though, if he doesn't take those steps forward, I think now you're looking at, competing for targets with Elijah Moore and Corey Davis. The place I really like, and we talked about them a couple episodes ago, but I really like Atlanta. They've talked about how they want to get bigger and more physical in their wide receiver room. I think slotting him next to Kyle Pitts with him on the outside and Pitts in the slot would be a matchup nightmare. I think that would be very non-traditional. And obviously Atlanta will go get a quarterback at some point. So I do find that as an interesting landing spot. And I'm going to say the Chargers, Chiefs, and Packers for all these favorite landing spots because, yeah, why not? Sounds great to me. Jeff, what's your favorite for Drake, though?
Well, let's just put him in Buffalo if we're gonna let him go like that low. May as well. He can do those things that would help the Bills too. But no, I've got him sitting with the Jets at 10. I just think that pick at 10 is going to be used on a wide receiver. I don't know if it's going to be a wide receiver in the draft or if it's going to be used on a wide receiver in a trade. And so that's kind of the questions right now because it does sound like the Jets were willing to offer that pick for Tyreek Hill potentially. I think maybe the package that I did here was the picks in the 30s, but there are also rumors that they're willing to throw that pick on the table for DK Metcalf. And so if they don't do that, I think that shows their willingness to go get a wide receiver. We talked about in the Garrett Wilson episode, the way that wide receivers are going to get drafted. The contracts have just blown completely apart for the wide receiver market. And so this reached a point where getting that fifth year on the wide receiver contract is almost as valuable as getting that fifth year on a quarterback contract. And so I think that's going to push everybody up, which I think that London, I've got him going as the first wide receiver in this class at 10 to the Jets. Again, I just can't wrap my mind around the Falcons actually going with wide receiver at 8, but maybe that's just the way I look at building a team versus how the Falcons look at building a team.
I think you're wrong. I think they're going to draft wide receiver at 8. I saw London a bunch of times there, and I think Christian's right. Like, I think they think Mariota can do something. I don't know exactly what that's going to be. I don't see more than 6 wins. I mean, if they take a wide receiver, they got a lot of holes all over that roster. But I think realistically, when you're looking at it, they could go there. London right now too. It's interesting. He actually, for those of you out there that are in drafts or coming up, his value is about a 104. Surprisingly or not, I've seen him go up basically at the 104, 105 in almost every rookie mock that I've done. Like, he is up there, and he's essentially going as wide receiver 2 in a lot of my mocks, and that's where it's going. And because the way it's gone out too, it's Hall and Willis pretty much 1-2. Like, unless you're in somebody else's mock that doesn't have people that know what they're doing, and then it really goes wide receivers. They're wide receiver at 3 at the 103, wide receiver at the 104, wide receiver 105, wide receiver usually at the 106, and then Walker. Like, that's kind of how it goes. So that just shows you the clump that these guys are in. But London has moved up, and he's going up to that 104, 105 mark now.
Yeah, I got him in the 108 in a real draft that I did like 6 weeks ago. So I was pretty thrilled with that. So, but I have found myself that I am a Drake London guy because I got him at the 108 in one draft. I got him at the 106 in one draft. And I was in another draft where rookies were in, and I took him at the beginning of the 5th round. So, I've found myself taking Drake London again and again. And he's a player that, again, it's hard. I'm hard pressed not to put him at my number 1. And the reality of it is not getting that 40 and just, being able to say Garrett Wilson was my pole to pole wide receiver 1 are really just kind of what's holding me up there.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, the 40 time, I didn't really touch on that. I'm not super concerned. I think it's related to the injury. I think he, when healthy, is a back end 4.5s guy. And really, if you look at the top wide receivers in the NFL right now, all of them run 4.5s. You don't have a bunch of Tyreek Hill, sorry. And that guy's pretty good. But like most of the guys right now that are considered the best wide receivers, Devontae Adams, I think, ran in the 4.5s. Like, yeah, sure. If you can get a guy that can win with his footwork and at all 3 levels, that 40 speed doesn't matter as much, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Hey, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Please hit that like and subscribe button on the channel. We really appreciate the support on here. And definitely check out our Devy Royale Patreon and our manifesto. A bunch of different stuff in there. We got some rookie content coming in that thing and some spring game notes and stuff like that. So please hit that button, find us on the Patreon, and we appreciate you guys.